This is the type of content that allows you to rest and pause and not have to be visible 24/7. And I was offline for 6 months. I didn't post to YouTube. I didn't post to my blog. I didn't post to social media. I was nowhere. I was not visible anywhere. I was able to take that time off and step away from my business, and I still had clients come and find me. If you've been feeling overwhelmed, disconnected from your business, or just tired of trying to keep up with it all, take a breath. I'm Krista Bauer, and this is the Slow Creative Podcast. Together, we'll explore what it means to grow your business with calm, intention, and soulful design. From slow marketing to Canva and simplifying the way you work so you can spend less time marketing and more time focused on your clients, your creativity, and your craft. Some of my content still brings me clients, and I'm not just talking about months later, I'm talking about years after I've created it. And that's the beauty of creating long form content for your business, or what I like to call cornerstone content. And this is the type of content that keeps doing the work while you can go on vacation or you can lean back a little in your business. This is the type of content that allows you to rest and pause and not have to be visible 24/7. I just shared a podcast a few weeks ago about creating calm in your business after you're going through a messy season or a big transition in life. And I was offline for 6 months. I didn't post to YouTube. I didn't post to my blog. I didn't post to social media. I was nowhere. I was not visible anywhere. And the beautiful thing about having cornerstone content where people can find me, I'm talking about searchable content that people can search on Google, or they can ask ChatGPT, or they can go on YouTube and they find me through long form content that way. I was able to take that time off and step away from my business, and I still had clients come and find me. And whenever I asked them how they found me, it was always through a Google search or through a YouTube video. Those seem to be like the biggest ways. And of course, that's where all of my long form content lives. So instead of trying to always keep up with trends and figuring out like what the algorithm is doing this week, a more sustainable way to create content for your business is to really focus on creating the deeper, more resonant content pieces that can breathe, and meaning they still feel relevant a year or two from now. So they're not going to go out of style. They're going to be here for another way to call this, I guess, would be creating evergreen content for your business. So that's what I want to share with you today, is how to create content that lasts, how to create content that keeps working while you rest, while you take vacation, while you need to step away from your business, and not focus on the trends. Not that I think anybody in my audience focuses on trends, because I know most of us don't. We're already there. But have you been focused on creating cornerstone content for your business that does a lot of this heavy lifting? To take some of that pressure off from content creation, to take some of the pressure off to always feeling like you need to be visible and online all of the time, this is one thing that's really going to help you. So what we're going to be talking about is how you can start building your own library of cornerstone content that quietly supports your business behind the scenes, so you can pause or rest or take a break when you need to, and you can lean back and you just don't need to be visible and feeling like you need to be glued to your phone 24/7. So before we get into it, I just want to share why I don't focus on trends. And honestly, if you were to ask me what's trending right now, I have no idea. I don't keep up with trends like at all. I mean, I get wind of some things because it's not like I'm not active online anywhere. You see what people are posting a lot of, and you just see it through the grapevine, I guess, whether you want to or you don't. But I'm not trying to figure out what's trending when I post. I literally don't care. I don't care at all. I don't put any of my energy into that, creating that type of content. And I honestly say that with full relief, because if I had to keep up with like what's going viral on Instagram, what kind of music is trending, and what should I be using in my reels, if I had to keep up with all of that, I'd be burnt out completely. Like I just wouldn't be able to keep up with creating that kind of content and having to stay on top of all of the things that are quote unquote doing really well. So instead, I just focus on creating things that I know that works. Like it's not that exciting, right? Like viral content is really good at creating spikes of attention with your audience. It can be fun, it can be exciting, it can be funny, it can be hilarious, it can be, and very entertaining, but just as quickly as you get create those really quick attention spikes with your audience, those little bursts, they disappear just as quickly. Like one thing that's viral now, 6 months from now, nobody's going to care about it. And that's the end of it. So if you're going to be building your visibility around that, I'll tell you, it is the fastest way to burnout. It's the fastest way to disconnection and just lack of love and joy and fulfillment in your work, because it's just not sustainable, especially for highly sensitive people, right? People who get easily overwhelmed, and especially get overwhelmed by all of the noise that's out there and having to be on your phone and being sucked in to all of the things that suck us in. You simply open your Instagram app to go maybe check a few comments, and suddenly you're there for a half an hour, right? Nobody wants that. This is why I think creating Cornerstone content and long form content is really good for people who are highly sensitive, who don't want to be online all of the time, who just value slowness. They value depth and meaning, and they value simplicity. So instead of chasing short-term visibility for your business, instead, focus on building long-term trust and discoverability through Cornerstone content. Like I said, it's much less exciting than viral content, but it lasts and it works, and it keeps working long after you've created it. So you can rest and you can take a little breather without feeling guilty, without feeling like your business is going to collapse on you. So I just wanted to say that Cornerstone content is truly one of the core pillars of building a slow, sustainable business. It's the foundation that everything can grow from. And the reason for that is because you're focused on creating depth and you're building trust. And through that depth, they're being invited to slow down. It's not like just on Instagram where you see a post, oh, that's funny, or that was helpful. You might follow them, but you don't have any true connection with that person. When somebody reads your long form content, or they sit with you for 10 minutes in a video or for 20 minutes in a podcast, they're building a connection with you. They're feeling a connection to your philosophy, what you stand for, your ideas. It's building a true, or I should say a much deeper connection than just trying to keep up with an algorithm or with trying to be viral. You don't feel that same connection with that type of content. So what's really nice is it invites your audience to slow down. They can build that deeper connection with you. And your audience can discover who you are over time, right? Like they will learn about what I've already mentioned. Like they'll learn about your philosophy. They will understand deeply what your beliefs are and where you stand. And that's what builds that bond and that deeper trust and that deeper connection with your audience. So that's why building long form content, it's not just about creating content that allows you to be discovered down the road and to not have to be online all of the time. This is what's going to help you build resonance in a deep and emotional way with your audience. So again, it takes some of the pressure off of posting constantly. It allows your older work to continue to circulate online and, like I said, do a lot of that heavy lifting for you. So essentially what Cornerstone content is, or what it becomes, is a resource library for your audience. This is something that people can return to again and again. And now that I'm going through this, and I say that, I don't have a resource library per se on my website, like a list of my top Cornerstone pieces of content. That's really going to give people a snapshot into what I'm all about. They can find it on my blog, but it's not together in like a library format. And I actually think that would be helpful. If you have a tab on your website, for instance, or maybe your link in bio on Instagram, and it takes people to a resource library where, you know, you have your best pieces of content and they can understand your philosophy, how your modality works. They get the basis and the understanding of like why it is that you do what you do. And all of these things, like essential things, like core pillars, philosophy, foundational pieces that are really going to help your audience. That could be a really beneficial thing for you to do. So the best part of all of this is you don't need to be creating Cornerstone content every day. You don't need to be online trying to come up with new things to post. You just need to be creating one Cornerstone content piece every single week, which is what I recommend to start building out that resource library essentially. But if you can't do every week, I think most of us can commit to one Cornerstone piece of content per week. But if you can't, maybe you've got another job or something like that, or you're a caregiver and you don't have a lot of free time, then focus on maybe every couple of weeks, or at the very minimum, focus on sharing one Cornerstone piece of content every month. And by the end of that, after a year, you've got 12 solid pieces of searchable content that your audience is going to be searching for. That's not relevant just today. That's going to be relevant for many years to come. My approach is really creating one long form piece of content each week. That's my goal. I've been doing that pretty much since the beginning. I started my business in 2015, and I've almost been putting out a long form piece of content every week for almost that whole time. I've taken breaks when I've had other things going on in my business, but then I come back and this is where I always pick up long form piece of content every single week. Now, some of it is no longer on my blog because it's just no longer relevant to what I do. Not so much that the content isn't relevant, it's just not relevant for my work anymore because I've evolved, my business has changed. You can do this long form piece of content any way you like. It can be a podcast, it can be a Substack post, it can be a weekly email to your newsletter, it can be a YouTube video. Obviously, the best advice that I can give you here is to hone in on one platform that you really love that's going to be sustainable for you and go all in on that platform. But if you can't do that, don't box yourself in. I would rather see you creating that piece of content and getting something out that's got depth, that's got meaning, that has substance to it, rather than not doing it and feeling, oh, well, I can't create a podcast episode this week, and then not writing when you could have easily written out the post instead. So I did mention that it needs to be searchable. And then I also talked about email newsletter. Now, why would I mention email newsletters? That's not searchable, but what's really helpful is I used to actually send a lot of my content, my long form content existed inside an email newsletter. But what's really nice is I'd have that piece of content. That was my words. That's my energy. That's my philosophy. That's my everything, right? That's got my energy signature stamp on it. What I can then do is I can then convert that long form piece of content into other forms of content. So then I could take it and I can create a podcast with it, or I could do a YouTube video, or I could do a blog post. So it's just like the idea and the habit of getting that long form piece of content out. What you would do is, if it's not on a searchable platform and you decide to do that in an email newsletter where you send your newsletter out weekly, for instance, and you're sharing an in-depth thought about something or a tip or something that's going to help your audience, like a philosophy, some foundational piece to your business, then you can then take that and convert it into something searchable. So you have the content and it's easy, right? You've already created it once. Now you can just speak to it or get on video, however you like to do it. But essentially, don't box yourself in. Don't get stuck on the platform if you're finding it hard to be on that same platform every week. Do whatever feels right for you. The most important thing is getting that piece out. So as I've already mentioned, once you have that longer form piece of content created, what you can then do is you can create it into dozens of smaller form pieces of content, like quotes for Instagram. You can do reels, you can do carousels. You can take a podcast and convert it into a newsletter. You can take a YouTube video and create a blog post. Like, there are 1,000 different ways that you can repurpose one long form piece of content. And when you have that long form piece of content, you can also take ideas out of that long form piece of content and drill down and go deeper on one specific idea. And you can do that 10 different ways, 10 different times. So one long form piece of content gives you endless amounts of content that you can repurpose, that you can turn into other forms of content. So it takes, again, like, you're not sitting there every week going, what do I post? What do I talk about? You have things already that you've spoken about. How can you recreate that into something else? Okay, so let's talk about how to create cornerstone content that's going to last, something that's going to still feel relevant like a year from now. So here's a few ways to think about this. And the first one is, one, to start with timeless questions. Okay, these are things like, what questions are your clients or your community always asking you? What struggles or problems or situations keep repeating themselves in conversations? So when you're talking to your clients, what kind of things keep coming up over and over? Or what lessons do you find yourself teaching over and over again? These are the kinds of topics that never go out of style, right? They're universal, they apply to lots of people, and that means that your people are still going to be searching for them even a year from now, 6 months from now, 5 years from now. The people are still going to be searching these topics. So the second thing is to focus on transformation, not trends. So don't go into this asking yourself, like, what's a hot topic right now? What should I be talking about? What are people interested in? Come into this with the mindset of, what do I want someone to understand, feel, or do differently after they consume this post or after they engage with this piece of content? So if your answer is speaking to a deeper need, something that provides clarity, calm, confidence, or connection with your audience, it's going to be relevant. You know you've hit gold when it speaks to any of those things. The third one is to think of your content as a resource, not some type of performance. So what I mean by that is you're not creating this type of content for clicks or to get likes or to get people to follow you. You're creating this content so that people can keep coming back to you. People can find you, right? So if you were to think of it as a resource, what's something that people can continue to refer back to? So ask yourself, would this help someone a year from now? Would I still stand by my message even if everything in the online world changed tomorrow? Like if the algorithms change, if marketing changed and took a whole new different direction, would you still stand by your message? And if the answer is yes, then it's probably Cornerstone content. It's probably something that you can use as part of your resource library. The fourth one is to anchor it in your experience. So when you're creating Cornerstone content, share real stories of things that have worked for you, things that haven't worked, what you've learned, share stories that have happened with you or transformations you've seen with your clients. Stories never expire. Like, people love stories, and they help to not only deepen your message, but they help you connect with the right audience as well. And this is one thing that AI cannot do. Okay? It does not know or have your lived experience. That's what builds connection with people. When we can share stories that are relatable to people and they can put themselves in our shoes or they can identify with something, that's what's going to build those really deeper bonds and connections with the right people. So the fifth one is to create your content with the intention of repurposing it. So one way you could do this is, let's say you're working on like a podcast episode like I'm doing right now. I can take out my notebook and I can write down any quotes or sections or moments out of this podcast that can then be turned into something like a reel, a voiceover, a carousel post, maybe a shorter written reflection, email snippets, a YouTube video. I mean, it can be turned into all kinds of things, right? What I like to do in this case is I like to use ChatGPT to help take something that I've created in my original voice and then create the shorter form pieces of content. So for instance, I'm doing this podcast, I have my notes, it's just me speaking to a few bullet points, but it's my words, my language, my beliefs, my message. And then what I'll do is, once I have the transcript, I can then give it to chat and I can say, create a carousel post out of this, create a real voiceover. And it's just going to take out the pieces of me speaking already in my tone and voice from this episode. And it's just going to organize it for me. So I don't have to sift through all of the information. Like, that would take me a long time to go back through and pull out pieces. But I can give it to chat and then I can say, give me the most relevant pieces, or here's the pieces that I want to hit on. Can you pull out these sections? That kind of thing. And then what I'll also do is I'll take this podcast episode, the transcript, and I'll ask chat to format it in a blog post style. So again, it's still all my words, all my message, all of my tips and information, my experience, and then it just organizes it for me so I don't have to go back in and do it. So that's a really good use case for ChatGPT, so that you're not having to waste your creative energy and your hours and the time that you have, the capacity, on all of that nitty gritty admin stuff, like all of that, putting those pieces together. You've done the hard work. You've done the authentic piece, which is speaking in your voice, getting your message out there. Let ChatGPT take care of all of those other little details for you. So once you have a few cornerstone pieces of content, then you can start letting it do more of the heavy lifting. This is the beautiful part. This is where the magic happens. This is the best part of it all. So how can you make your cornerstone content work for you? So the first one is to refresh older pieces of content, which I've already mentioned. So don't let your content die. You've put in so much work and effort into making a great piece of content. So then what you want to do is you can go back every 6 months, maybe every year. You've got a little note in your calendar to go back and check on some of those pieces. Is it still relevant? Does it still reflect your values and your beliefs? Do you want to update some of the examples or offer new insights? Go back in and tweak those older pieces of content, so when somebody does land on it, it still reflects like who you are. So you don't need to redo the whole piece, just updating certain pieces. And if it doesn't reflect your beliefs anymore and it's something that that's not relevant for your business, then I would just pull those pieces right off. So the next one is to reshare what still resonates. Okay, so don't assume that everybody saw your post the first time you posted it. Don't assume that someone listened to your podcast or saw your video. Nobody remembers it. Even if they did, they probably don't remember it, or they didn't hit on all the key aspects. So bring back those old posts, bring back those old podcast episodes into circulation, especially if they feel relevant. Re-record an old podcast episode, but refresh it a little. Don't assume that they've seen it or that they've remembered everything that you've shared. The next one is to organize your library. So if you have some Cornerstone content pieces created, maybe you've got somewhere a Notion, or you've got a Google Drive or somewhere where you can categorize some of the Cornerstone pieces so they're easy to find and reuse. So maybe you have a Google spreadsheet, just somewhere where you can keep everything and you know which pieces you want to go back and keep refreshing and updating. And then the final one is to automate all of the easy stuff. So like using scheduling tools and recurring reminders to help remind you to go back and reshare old content. Let your systems support you throughout this process so that your creativity doesn't have to be wasted in the wrong ways or used up on things like this that are mindless, that really, honestly, that's why things like ChatGPT for things like this is really great. Not for scheduling, obviously, but all those little nitty gritty things. Yeah, I don't want to waste my brain power. I don't want to waste my energy and creativity on that stuff. So using tools to help make this easy is going to be so much better for you. If you create a post, for instance, like what I will do is I have this podcast episode. I will tell Chat all of the pieces of content that I want it to create from this one podcast episode, like carousel posts and all of these things. I use Descript to edit my podcast. And what I will then do is I'll use their AI tool generator to create YouTube shorts. So it'll then go in, and because I'm doing a video podcast here as well, if you go on YouTube, you can find the video version of this podcast. What I will do is I'll tell Descript to create shorts, and then it will convert my video into a vertical video that I can then upload for YouTube Shorts. So it's just taking, I will do about 5 to 8 clips, and it will pull those clips for me. It'll kind of pull out the hook or the headline, whatever you want to call it. And I don't have to do that. Like, I've created the content, and now I allow systems, automations, apps to do all that other stuff that I personally don't feel is like the best use of my time. So this is how you build sustainable visibility with your business. This is sustainable marketing. This is how you do it slowly, thoughtfully, and in a way that still honors your natural rhythms and your energy and a pace that feels doable. So that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the show. If there's one thing that I want you to take away from this episode, it's to remember that you don't need to be everywhere. You don't need to be posting content every day. You just need to show up one place, like deeply and consistently, and let those content pieces keep showing up for you long after you've posted it, so you can take a breather, you can pause, you can rest in your business, and things don't have to feel so hard. Okay, so I want you to ask yourself, what's one long form piece of content you could create this week that would still feel true and helpful 1 year from now? Okay, that's your cornerstone. That's your cornerstone content. So if this episode sparked something in you, please share it with a friend or a colleague, someone who is craving a little more sustainability and want to grow their business in a way that feels really good. Or feel free to comment Cornerstone on my latest post or video and let me know that you're building your own stack of slow, lasting content. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you again next week. Thanks for listening to the Slow Creative Podcast. If today's episode resonated, I would love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to leave a comment or a reflection on the show notes at kristabauer.com/podcast, where you can find the latest episode and all of the links and resources mentioned in today's show. And if you know of someone who's craving more slow, intentional support for their business or their creative life, please consider sharing this episode. Until next time, keep listening to your energy, your creativity, and what truly matters.